Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about a very interesting week of development in the final stages of Ultra Engine as we lead up to early access. Here's a nice screenshot from JD Gaming showing his use of the volumetric lighting that was implemented by Klepto 2 and was added a week or two ago. And this actually does show a couple of things we've learned about volumetric lighting is it really looks best when you have areas of high contrast, when you have like a lot of contrast with the lighting, like we do here. And then it looks really good when something's actually casting a shadow, as you see here with the window frame is actually casting the shadow. If you just have like a lot of volumetric lights everywhere, then it just kind of makes everything fade out if the area is too bright. So it's really good to have a lot of contrast when you're using this. And you can use the alpha channel of the light color to control the intensity of the effect. So you can get the exact look that you want. So this week was a huge week, big progress. So I added a new 2D drawing system. This is the tile class, and the API for that is pretty straightforward. And I went ahead and I replaced, when a 3D GUI is created, I replaced the whole rendering backend of that with the new 2D tile system. And it actually went, I mean, there's a few hiccups, but it actually went like pretty incredibly smoothly. I'm pretty pleased with the results. And that just makes it a lot easier. You no longer have to create like a second camera with orthographic projection. Now you can just have 2D primitives that are drawn right on top of your scene. So you just need one camera for that. So it does simplify things quite a lot. And I went ahead and I did that in all the editor features, like in the viewports, all the overlays and stuff that it uses that are 2D. I went ahead and replaced those with this system, and it worked out really well. I also added added some functionality in the editor. So when you add a new component, a new C++ component, the editor will automatically insert the code files into your Visual Studio project, and it generates a new component systems .h file. Now this is really, really awesome because previously when you added a new component with C++, it wasn't exactly straightforward. You had to add the CPP file into your Visual Studio project by hand. You had to, optionally, you could add the component header file also into your Visual Studio project. And you also had to edit your component system.h file. You had to include the new component header file, and you had to make a call to add a call to register component with your components class. And so it was really like 4 things you had to do, and now all of that is just done instantaneously by the editor itself. This is done by opening up. So Visual Studio, it has to modify 2 files to do this. Visual Studio VCX Proj and VCX Proj filters are really just XML files. And so what I did is I read those files as XML. I inserted the new values, and then I resaved them. And it actually worked. I was a little bit worried about this, but it actually works incredibly well. It also makes a backup of those files in your project backup folder. But it actually it just took something that was previously very tedious, and it just makes it so it's just instantaneously done. It's worked out pretty awesomely, I think. I also added an anisotropic filtering setting in the editor. There'll be a command for that soon. I added an additional toolbar group in the editor. That's this up on the right. You've got a button to open the code editor. So this will open either Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio solution files, depending on whether it's a C++ or Lua project. And then you've got the run, debug, stop buttons. And then I also added just a world get paused command to tell if you've called world pause, or then this will return true. So what's left to do before full release? Just fixes and finalize the documentation. That's it. So in other words, I'm just going to be doing bug fixes and docs from here until release. So we had a couple of interesting polls last week in the forum. I asked which people preferred the Visual Studio Code IDE that we're using for Lua now with the improved debugger, or the integrated IDE that LeadWorks 4 uses, and it was split 50-50. And I was porting some LeadWorks Lua tutorials into the new documentation, and I came across this screenshot on the left, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that is really simple. It is very straightforward and clear, like what you're supposed to do." And I was thinking, like, if I was giving this, if I was teaching like a bunch of high school students how to use this, and I had to explain to them, well, you need to download Visual Studio Code. Now you have to add this extension. And there's like all these weird buttons on there. I don't know what those do, but don't touch them. Versus the LeadWorks IDE, I can see why some people would prefer that. Of course, Visual Studio Code, it's a much better looking IDE, and the Lua debugger is much more powerful. The Lua debugger in LeadWorks is pretty limited because what it does is it only goes down like 3 or 4 levels deep, and then it doesn't return anything after that. It's not, so in other words, when you expand one of these tree nodes, it doesn't dynamically like fetch that data. It just has like a static shot of the current state, and it only goes down a few levels. The Lua debugger is much more advanced, much more complete. It's much more, it kind of like treats Lua as a first-class programming language. But I can see the appeal of the old IDE. I do understand, it is a lot easier even just opening the project is kind of difficult in Visual Studio Code. It's not exactly clear, especially if you've never done it before. So what's good about Visual Studio Code? The Monaco text editor is what it uses for the display of and editing of text. It looks really good. Very, very nice. Very beautiful. The Lua debugger is more advanced than LeadWorks 4, certainly. The cons are that it requires the installation and setup is not as clear. It requires third-party extensions, and one third-party extension for the Lua debugger. So you have to go to the extensions marketplace. You have to search for that. You have to make sure you've got the right one. And it is more difficult to open the project. And then additionally, I'd just say it's got so much stuff in it that, what does it all do? I don't know, but it's got a lot of features, and it's like one of those programs where you don't touch 90% of what it has. It's kind of like 3ds Max is the same way. I only use like 5% of the functionality of 3ds Max when I'm using that program. And because I have no idea what the other 95% does, and I don't really have any use for it. So in the future, I might be open to creating a new integrated IDE using the Monaco code editor. And then if we had this and then an improved Lua debugger, that was a little bit more capable than the one in LeadWorks 4, that might be a good way to where everybody would be happy with that. I think, because I don't think anybody like loves VS Code. They just like they like some things about it. They like the debugger. They like the text editing looks very good. So in the future, maybe this is the direction we'll go. It's not something I'm going to start right now. But it's something I would be to keep in mind, 6 months from now, maybe this is something that we want to do.
Yeah, and you go back to that all-in-one game engine thing. Like, you don't need any other, besides Visual Studio, but for the Lua people, they just need the editor, and they're all good to go, like how it was in LiveWorks.
Yeah, I do think it would be a good idea to, now that we've we've kind of like handled the core users are happy. There's still work to do. There's still a lot of bugs to fix before full release, but the core users are basically happy at this point. And I think this is a good time to. I think we kind of want to like pay some attention to the onboarding, like new users, and kind of make things a little bit more like Roblox in that sense. Because there's a lot of those people, and it doesn't take a huge like technical feat to make them happy. So just paying a little bit more attention to that onboarding process, I think, is something that we want to start thinking about.
Yeah, and it's just easier when people just like look it up and it's like, oh, I just need to install this one thing. I don't need to install this and then install this other program and then make sure I have this extension or plugin installed and
Yeah.
all this.
So I don't know. Food for thought. At this point, this is a good time to. Well, do we have any like comments or anything about that stuff before moving on?
Mhm. I will probably not use it, and I kind of didn't. Well, in Levels 4.6, it expected you to be using Lua, and I always hated when I got like a crash or something happened, and then it would throw up the Lua debugger, even though my project was in C++. I guess the only thing I would ask if you were to go forward to that is that the other knows I'm working with C++, and it doesn't load the debugger, even though it's not a Lua project. Like it didn't look Leverux.
Yeah, I don't think that would be an issue.
Yep.
Any comments on the 2D drawing stuff? Have you guys had a chance to try it out yet?
I have not.
All right. Well, it's very cool, and it's all in one class. Just the create tile. Very very straightforward. Um,
Is the documentation all updated for that, or you still
Somewhat.
got right there? Yeah, because I haven't taken a look at that.
Yeah. It's in progress. Okay. So this is a good point to say thank you to everyone who's given me a thumbs up on Steam. T Ticky, Drogowit, The Cuzzy, Cap Crunch, Metal OS, Echnologia, Knievels, Ricochet, Andy, Gashish Master, Marcy 3D, Gamer, Saru71, Mazel, Timmy! You, Plisa, Gravitate Games, Lilybite, Wreckage, Technofox, Casmic, Doctor Who 3D GX, JD Gaming, whose screenshot we are featuring today.
Yeah.
Thank you, JD Gaming. Reap Blue, Anthony Python, CZX 18888888848, Edalin Trick, Merrick IJC, Kent, Old Amsterdamed, Drake Black, who is a superstar bug reporter, Merrick, Project Mayhem, Pedrito, James W. Harden, Troyanator, Altitude, Lucky Luke, Slick29, Gavaris3, Waxy, and Renha. Thank you all very much. Can we get a golf clap for these individuals?
Hold on. I have a pen. I have a pen now. So
Okay. Okay, we had another poll. I asked, which of my engines has a better name? Leadworks engine, Leadworks game engine, or Ultra engine? And the poll kind of went back and forth as more people like voted, but I think we got about 20 votes at the end of that, and 60% say that Leadworks has a better name. And now the problem with the name Leadworks is people constantly misspell and mispronounce it. but that might, I don't know, that
You okay?
it seems like the name Ultra is okay. There's something. I think
You
around like 2015, human beings stopped. They everyone lost the ability to form memories because it seems like there's some phenomenon going on where nothing after 2015 is considered real.
you could consider naming Ultra Works, and that Ultra Works is the next the next level of the engine. From LeadWorks, you created UltraWorks so that the name association at the end reflects what LeadWorks was.
Well, now we have a new name that's hard to spell. And I didn't actually say anything about like rebranding or anything in the poll. I was just like, hey guys, well, what do you think? Blah, blah, blah. But you guys are very clever. Um, so the reason I say this is because everything after 2015 is considered fake. And the reason I say that is because there's hasn't been any movie or band or comic book character. Nothing was invented after 2000. Like nothing can stick after 2015. Like
Well,
everything is a rerun. Everything is a sequel.
Nothing completely new, but like again, the only thing that was again, the only thing that was really like impressive to me was Cyberpunk 2077, but that's based on a role playing game from
From
years
the
ago.
like the 80s or the 90s.
Yeah, but it's an old thing put into a new medium. I don't
Right.
know,
So it's a sequel. It's a rerun. Um,
right?
I believe when AI finally handshakes with all the creative imaginations with the human input, then very vast and very quick will be the change from nothing being created that's new to a lot of things that will be brand new that no one ever thought of prior.
I kind of disagree because depending on how you're interacting with the AI, if it's corporate AI, it's going to tell you green is not a creative color and it's going to tell you that you can't paint a picture of a clown. So, and all the data sets are made of just things that exist. And I'm pretty sure there's filters and guardrails to make sure you don't make anything too close to an existing IP. But
I'm talking a generation from now when AI is very advanced with the next generation that's coming in with all the creative ideas that will be already employed with the AI, along with the human endeavor of creating something totally new, will handshake with each other to create like in 2035, 2040 will be things that we can't even imagine today.
well, we can't
yeah,
wait until 2040. But yeah, it just it seems like there definitely seems to be some kind of phenomenon where like it's impossible to introduce anything new. And Leadworks was that name was introduced at a time where it was still like acceptable to for something new to be created. And I have like three ideas about why this might be. One is that that might have been that like the dead internet, which is dead internet theory is pretty much just pretty generally accepted now, right? It's not even it's just an observation, not really a theory. Like Meta themselves are flooding their own platform with fake accounts, and they think they're touting this as a feature. But I mean, the dead internet theory has been true for some time. Around 2015, 2016 might have been when the bots really started getting unleashed. It might have been that was when the social media platforms started. That's when like the normal person's reach disappeared. Like if you go on Blue Sky right now, like it's like Twitter except it's for humans. Like engagement there is really really high on Blue Sky, and it seems to all be just all people. It doesn't have that like artificial quality that like Facebook and Twitter have now. And another thing it might be is just Leadworks was very early to the game, and so people were open to new ideas then, and then as that market kind of matured, people became less open to new ideas. But like, I don't know, I just like I watched part of Mike from Game from Scratch, part of his video, and he said something like, "Oh yeah, Leadworks. This has been around for a while. This is like he was saying that like proof that it's not fake." And like one person who responded to the on the forum, he said something like yeah, the name Ultra to me that sounds like it's fake and it's a scam. And he didn't really think that. He's just saying that that's how it made him feel. It's a weird. I'm not sure. I mean, there's something. I don't claim that I totally understand this phenomenon, but there's something to what I'm saying here. So a brand is like, it's like you're branded. You're a cow, and you've received your brand. And the Leadworks brand, it's like it gets misspelled and it gets mispronounced, but everybody knows it. The name Ultra, I'm afraid, is one of the things I did not account for is the idea that a word can be like so generic that it never really becomes attached to having any meaning. And I was in Croatia, and I saw an advertisement for something called Ultra Music Festival. And at the time, I thought, oh yeah, this is a sign, And by sign, I just mean like a new piece of information that you notice, and you bring that into your total amount of information you have to form your understanding of the world. But it was a sign. It was a sign that the name is very generic. That's something that has been brought up. I'm just afraid that the name is so generic that it's never really okay. Like somebody brought up something called core. A couple of weeks ago, they were talking about that as an example of like some good documentation that I could look at for ideas of like how to structure tutorials. And I was like, I'd never heard of it before, but then I'm also not. I might have heard of it, but the name is so generic that I don't know if I've heard of it or not. That's a big problem. If the name is like, that's an example of like a very, very generic word turned into a brand that never really becomes a brand. So that's
That's why I suggested Ultra works, because it relates to the original source, but it shows an enhancement by Ultra versus Lead, so that there's a relation from the original to the new.
well, I did that with the I kept the little gear insignia in the top right, which is very cool. But then you have something without the name recognition, plus it's difficult, plus people are still going to misspell it.
Let them misspell it, but if the Ultra works, they're actually saying the name, and that's actually getting into their head versus any symbol that they would see.
Well, again, this goes back to human beings lost the ability to form new memories in the year 2015. Something happened.
I think most some of it was that when you introduced your engine to the BlizzMax community in the mid 2000s, it was before like Unity and UDK and all that started to take off. Like you either had to make your if you were an indie developer, you pretty much had to like find something or make your own engine. You didn't have access to to AAA engines unless you were willing to pay for it. And now that's no longer the case. Now anyone can go to Unreal or Unity and just grab their engine. And I think because you were in the game before that happened, that's why that name stuck.
Yeah, but the fact is that I mean, this brand is pretty darn strong. It's a name
Well, yeah,
everybody knows.
it's almost 20 years old now.
Yeah, it's like 19 years old. 2006 ish. Was the very. I mean, it never really. It didn't really get popular until like 2014.
Right. Well,
But I
that's I
came up
think
with the name probably I'd say around 2006.
yeah. Well, again, it was a BlizzMax thing, kind of, sort of.
Yeah. So and this also goes back to like, what does the brand promise? And this branding, this is actually like I kind of got lucky and I like hit the nail right on the head when I released this on Steam in 2014. That's when I really went with this direction, the learn, build, play thing. Well, what does it actually mean? Powerful game tools don't have to be painful to use. Like you can have something to use that's powerful and also enjoyable and fun to use. That's a big problem I have with like things like 3ds Max and Visual Studio. They're powerful, but I don't really like using them. And it's not a matter of like, everybody who says like, "Oh, this can't be good. This is for beginners," or "Oh, if it's beginners, it has to be, the software has to be crippled." That just means you're a bad designer. Like that dichotomy that exists has always existed and still exists today. It doesn't have to, like, Leadworks is a rejection of that idea. And so you can have something that does what you need, that doesn't let you down, and also it doesn't, it can be well designed. And the other idea is with the right guidance, anyone can bring their creative vision to life. Now, I feel the Leadworks tutorials did this very well up to the point, like it taught code. It did a very good job of teaching the basics of coding from zero, starting from zero. But the point where it kind of let the user down was in going from there to making the game, and that's why we've been talking a lot about
It
tutorials.
also let users down when they said, "Hey, I want to access the direct buffer. How do I do that? It's not in documentation." And then you would come on and be like, "Well, the buffer class is not fully documented because I didn't want it to scare new users or whatever." Like it was also things like that.
Well, better. I mean, that comes down to a better division between what's actually supported and what's not supported, and that's why so much stuff in that's why in Ultra, like all the classes have like protected, private, and public sections, because some stuff is just off limits. So that comes down to like better design, I guess. But yeah, these are. I mean, this is what the promise of the Leadworks brand is. The Ultra brand is performance, and it does that. It delivers on that. But I think it's also like kind of intimidating to some people. Like, yeah, it's fast, but it's probably not for me because I don't know how to do that. So Okay, so this gets into like how you're designing uh, your learning materials. It's not just like a superficial thing, because your brand, like, it tells you, it says like what you're trying to do, and that defines like where you put your effort and how you design things. So regarding the gameplay tutorials, I think these needed. I We were talking a lot about tutorials and how to structure that, and I think they have to be divided up into separate games. I don't think we can just do I don't think we can do a series of tutorials where it's like, oh, here's how to make an RPG camera. Now here's how to add a jetpack. Now here's how to make a marble game. Now here's how to make a Pac-Man game. I don't think it's probably not possible to build every game into one. I think these probably need to be separate games with separate sets of components. Because otherwise, if I go back and I add something later, or if I change something in one game, then it's going to affect everything else. I think that will. I think those all have to be compartmentalized. And so that's kind of that's the approach I'm mentally taking now. Like starting with like Pong and Flappy Bird, and then like maybe my asteroids game, like Star Fox kind of thing that I made. Starting with those, and then going upwards, and that way I can write something and not worry about how it's going. I can write Pong and not worry about how it's going to interact with the components from an RPG game or something like that. That's kind of what I'm thinking at this point.
Like have it be like like how to make Pong first create a new project, do this, and then you have to set up like your paddles and balls, and you add, you write a ball component and all that.
I think
Like,
that's the only way to do it, because otherwise it's never gonna. Otherwise it's gonna be this interconnected web that's never gonna be done.
yeah, I mean I think that's what a lot of the game engines do. They're like, oh, we're gonna make this game, and usually it's like they also have web support, so you actually can play it in the browser. Obviously, you can't do that, but then they'll like say, okay, this is how you make it from scratch. First, we go to create new project, and we name it this, and you know,
Something like
and then
that.
You could always have simple little creative games of all types so that everyone has an example of how that type of game is put together, and depending on what they're creating takes or leave by the examples that you leave available to them to access.
But yeah, that's basically what I'm saying.
now would these be templates, or would you want to encourage the user to make it by themselves?
It would be a built-in template in the engine, I think.
So
Uh, they,
how would
they
they?
should be examples, and then the person decides if the template's good for them. If not, then they could create their own template within the engine according to what they want within the game.
Well, yeah, that's what the blank project does.
Yeah, but my the only thing about adding existing those example projects as templates is that the user will not learn. They will, because they won't know how the ball works. They will like how they will actually just post on the forum how this is working without going through step by step and figuring things out. I mean, they're both trade offs in the end.
Yeah.
Everyone's at a different level of learning of how to work with the computer in order to accomplish tasks. If they have the examples, they can figure out what works and what don't work with the engine.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll just try it and see what the results are. Because I mean, we can theorize about it, but then when you see actual like human behavior, then it just knocks all your theories out of the water. And
Human behavior is totally random. There's no way to lock that down. It's just making a general midway point of how most humans act and serve those folks. And then, of course, those that are at a higher level will enhance it, and those that's lower will take the examples and utilize it within what game they're creating.
Well, you're right. It's unpredictable, but it's also there's definitely patterns to it, and people definitely have preferences. Um, so I don't know. Should we call this? I mean, if we call this engine LeadWorks 5, um, it's a little bit. That's a little bit. That's slightly embarrassing. That that I tried something and it didn't work, but honestly, I think after like 2 weeks, nobody would even notice would even remember the name Ultra. It
or like,
seems
because the end result, all they care about is the final product. They don't care what it's called.
well,
Yeah, the name is up to you. You could call it any type of engine you want, as long as those that's invested would just change over when they download the update. That the engine name is just updated to according to your wishes, and they would just adapt to the name that you finalize on.
well, the technical details of this are very simple. I mean, I would just add a type def in like or a define statement in the Ultra Engine header that says define Ultra Engine LeadWorks, and then change the namespace, and all of your existing code that says like namespace using namespace Ultra Engine, it would still all work. So nothing would have to change. I guess like the folder in which the settings are stored would change. I could just make the editor automatically rename that if it's present. So there's no there's no big technical hurdles here. I could just take the existing website and just move that back
It's
over to the make the leadworks.com domain name point to the server that we have now, and make the
Yeah, you're the final decision according to what type of engine name you want. There is no wrong answer. It's just what are you comfortable with as the final product name? Because anything can be adapted to the engine that you're creating currently.
well, it's not about my preference, and it's not even about the preference of the core users who come and hang out on the weekends on Discord. It's about the public consciousness. Leadworks is firmly cemented in the public consciousness, and everyone knows it. Everyone knows that name. Ultra, I'm afraid I don't know if it's ever going to get to that point, because it's like one of those things like Core, where even if you've heard of it, you're not aware that you've heard of it.
But the public has only a short term memory anyway.
No, it's not true.
Well, as far as let's say you're calling it Ultra yesterday, and tomorrow you call it LeadWorks 5, they're not going to remember Ultra in a very short time. They'll only know as the new product that you named it.
That's only because the name Leadworks is a strong brand. It's a like this is a weird phenomenon, and I'm glad that you guys get to kind of like learn from my experience, because this might be something that you utilize in the future. But like once you've got a strong brand, it's really you're branded like a cow. Like if this cow decides, well, my name isn't Bessie anymore, now my name is Ferdinand. Everybody's gonna say, "Oh no, that's Bessie. Oh no, I'm Ferdinand. No, you're Bessie." You know what I mean? It's branded. It's received its brand.
That's like a car named Annabelle, and you say, "Get up the hill, Annabelle, get up it," even though it's just a car.
Yeah. So those are my thoughts on this. I feel like the name Ultra is not sticking. It's not. It's not gonna catch. It's not ever gonna be known as well as Leadworks. And a year into early access, 60% of the users still prefer the name Leadworks. That's 60% of people who are like active on the forum. That's not uh, talking about all the people out there, um, all the past users. So if we want to get those people, if we want to get these people up to the latest technology, then calling it Leadworks 5 might be a major concession that to them signals, okay, this is no longer, something that's purely like extreme high performance tech. This is something that delivers on the promise of why I was originally interested in Leadworks, which is powerful game tools don't have to be painful to use, and with the right guidance, anyone can bring their creative vision to life.
Yep.
I think that's what that means. That's what that brand means to.
Yep. With the power of OpenGL.
Well,
Not
I mean, the
Vulkan.
API is irrelevant. And yeah, another thing is like Ultra Engine to me, that means like I have very good memories associated with Leadworks. I think about the game tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
With Ultra Engine, I think about, when I hear that name, I think about debugging Vulkan code. And it might have worked out kind of well that all of that development, that long development period, was sort of put into the Ultra name, because now we could go back to Leadworks and it doesn't have the association of like forever debugging Vulkan code.
7 years of bug testing.
Something like, yeah. So those are my thoughts right now on this topic. I guess I don't really have anything else to say at this time.
Very exciting times.
But I mean, now, we're early access is the time to work these issues out. So if we are gonna change that, then what is this circle?
Oh, that's from the Unreal Tournament EU project. When they got angry that they took Unreal off of the stores, they just took the EU out of Unreal Engine.
I don't get it.
Because they delisted Unreal the game, so it's a joke.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Ultra Real Engine.
Yeah, that's another thing.
More
too.
like
Like,
unrealistic, am I right?
Oh, wait. I might have that.
Anyways. And I have a very cool hoodie for Leadworks.
I have the T-shirt where it's from the 2013. It's from like the I think it's from the Kickstarter. You sent it as a reward for participating. It says it has the old Lead. It doesn't have that logo. It has the old Leadworks logo on it, and on the back in red it says "Work Smarter." And I was like, oh, that was a cool brand.
Yeah, the hoodie is badass because it's got this logo, minus the Learn Build Play because that's too small, on the upper upper left chest, and then it says Learn Build Play in like white letters with a black outline going down one of the sleeves, and then on the back it's got this big gear. It's got three different printed areas, huh?
Wasn't it like backwards or flipped or something?
No, I got one that they shipped me one that was where the gear was flipped, was printed backwards, and so I took a photo of it and showed it to them. And so I still have that one with the backwards gear, but then they sent me another one.
I think that's the one you wore to Dev Days because I remember seeing it. And it's like, oh, I was like, I do like the T-shirt though. I never wear it. It's just a memento.
Yeah, I'm sure I was at Steam Dev Days. I'm sure I was wearing that. It's hard to get. Spreadshirt doesn't do multiple print areas anymore like that. They just like you can only print in like if you get like a T-shirt, you can only print on the front, like in one section. So it's hard to get stuff like that. At least
you have to go to a local print shop and you gotta work with them and.
Well, then you have to ship it yourself, and
Yeah,
that's a pain. Spreadshirt was a lot more convenient, but the hoodie is badass. I love the hoodie.
yeah. Shame it's out of print, unfortunately.
Anyway, so yeah, all I got to do is bug fixes and documentation, and then we'll be at the final release.
Yep. Fun times.
Oh, we have a few more people here than we started with. Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Yeah. Slick engine. Slick 29 engine. How about Doctor Who 3D GX engine? How about we take the names of everybody here and we'll call it T-Tiki, Drogo with the Cuzzy, Capcrunch, Metal OS, Technology, Knievel's, ... engine. That would be distinctive.
Yep, and it'll be very, very cheap to trademark and back.
But it would be very hard to remember that
Yeah.
entire name.
That's the point.
Yeah, that's you got a good point. Maybe I shouldn't do it. Okay, so any other questions or stuff about the 2D system or the upcoming tutorials that I plan on writing? I'm not gonna try to do like extensive game tutorials before the full release. I think that's gonna be something that's gonna be. I think that's gonna be something I have to do over like the next 6 months. Is a more realistic time frame for that.
So how? So when you want to ship like 1.0, like in June or something, or
It could be as little as like 4 to 6 weeks.
so it's not like you're gonna. All right. I don't know how much of a window because I don't know. But if you stop adding features, I guess the bugs will eventually catch up. So or you know,
I've got
you're
about
not
80 outstanding bug reports. I'd guess probably only 60 of those are probably like 20 of those are either already solved or so
easy.
they're not sufficiently described to where they can be reproduced.
Yeah, that's kind of why I kind of hold on bug reports because there are a lot of bugs. A lot of bugs I run into is like I can't reproduce it. Like it just happens.
Mm.
I use the vertex tool and it crashes, or
Well, even that
record.
there's still a description of what some stuff in there. It's just
But
there's not an adequate description.
that's why when 1.0.0 is released, as more people is using the engine, then you'll have 1.0.1 because of bug fixes, etc. But right now, in the raw state of bug fixes, as long as everything's hit and everything's working efficiently, then 1.0 could be released at your leisure.
Yeah. I actually think like the initial, 1.0 or 5.0 or whatever it is, the full release, I think it's going to be extremely stable because we are testing it like very thoroughly. And I've done a few releases like this, so I think this is actually going to be like the most stable like initial release I've ever done. And I definitely appreciate everyone's participation and help during this period. It's been over the last year and before, it's been a long process of development. It certainly would have gone a lot faster if I had known some things ahead of time. If I hadn't, I mean, I could have saved like several years if I hadn't tried using Vulkan. Vulkan, like honestly, like that almost like sabotaged the whole project. Um, but yeah, we've recovered from that, and it's the end result is turning out to be really fantastic, and it's very much a collaborative effort. It's not just me, sitting up in my tower designing things and handing it down to you guys. It's been very much back and forth. A lot of the features in there only came about because you guys told me that, oh, this is what you should add, and I was like, oh yeah, that actually is a really good idea. So with that said, I think I will end the video here,
Okay.
and I'll see you guys on the forum.